Good morning and afternoon and evening to um, all of our audience today and panelists. My name is Mohammed Ahmed. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives and Community Programming at ACTRI, which is short for the American Counterterrorism Targeting and Resilience Institute. I want to welcome you all to our Security Talks webinar series. This program today is on justice, reparation, and gender considerations among travelers to ISIS. ACTRI is a cross-disciplinary 501c3 nonprofit organization focused on a broad spectrum of transnational extreme right, extreme left, militant jihadi political violence. We study the relationships between them and their effect on how ideologies emerge, spread, dominate, and influence countermeasures. I want to give a brief shout out to our ACTRI Research Advisory Board members. Thank you for supporting our work at ACTRI. Thank you for providing your valued experience, time, and challenging us to always do better and move our organization forward. The ACTRI Security Talks speaker series brings national and international security experts from both across the nation and the globe from various disciplines and backgrounds to present their current research and real-world experiences on issues related to national and international security. These series are designed to educate, build awareness, and harness community-led discussions and solutions to some of the most pressing issues and challenges facing our global community. The discussion for our program today, once again, is on justice, reparation, and gender consideration among travelers to ISIS. This webinar will feature discussion on the experiences of US, European, and the Balkan countries trying foreign terrorist fighters and women returnees from the so-called Islamic State. Reparation, judicial responses to FTFs and women returnees, and evidence collection and information sharing among national authorities and other states and international bodies and organizations will be discussed today. The panelists will highlight experiences of countries that have actively repatriated their citizens from Syria and Iraq, men, women, and children. A recent UN CTED report highlighted prosecutorial practices among member states with regards to prosecution of women travelers to Iraq and Syria and underscored the need for more gender-sensitive criminal justice response. In this regard, the panelists will further speak to the findings as well as highlight the complexities associated with the prosecution of women travelers to Iraq and Syria. Today we have multiple guests on our panel who will speak to these various different issues. Now, brief introduction, we will go in order, starting with Dr. John Giduck for his opening remarks on foreign terrorist fighters and travelers to Iraq and Syria and legal implications. Mr. Giduck, Dr. Giduck serves on the ACTRI Research Advisory Board and has traveled and worked throughout the world, including years working in Russia and the former Soviet Union. He has provided training for US state and federal law enforcement, government agencies, and special operations military units. He has authored several books: Terror at Balkan, a Russian tragedy with lessons from America's schools; Shooter Down, the dramatic untold story of the police response to Virginia Tech massacre. Along with co-author Police Commissioner Joseph M. Bale, and When Terror Returns, the history and future of terrorist mass hostage sieges. He holds a PhD in Middle East Studies from King's College in London. His dissertation was on the evolution of jihadi terrorist mass hostage siege tactics throughout the world and formed the basis for his latest book. In 2016, he completed a master's program in Buddhist studies. He also obtained his doctorate of law, JD, from the University of Denver College of Law. Mr. Giduck, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mohammed. Hello to everyone. I want to thank especially ACTRI, and particularly Ardian and Allison in my relatively short association with them. I think they as individuals and the organization has proven itself to be a remarkable body doing really great things. It's a particular honor to be here among this panel. If I hadn't been asked to actually participate in this, I would have really enjoyed just being a member of the audience, as I think it is a truly impressive group of people, professionals, practitioners, who are actually out there today as part of their jobs, doing this, dealing with these issues. Something that I really can't claim. I particularly would like to thank Dr. and retired Major Richard Hubank for getting me involved with this organization, which has resulted in me participating here in this panel discussion today. One of the things that I am forever extolling my doctoral students at Colorado Technical University in Homeland Security is the need to approach every problem, every issue, really with three important factors in mind. We cannot ever begin to understand and certainly not solve any problem we confront in the world today without a knowledge of history. Certainly George Santayana warned us back in 1905 in The Life of Reason, and this isn't his direct quote, but it's one I think most people have come to associate with him. Those who fail to learn the lessons of history are doomed to repeat them. So we always have to understand the history of issues, which includes the history of the culture, the people that we're dealing with. We have to engage in true, academically critical, objective, and dispassionate analysis of everything that we do. And we have to make a tremendous effort to really gather information, to educate ourselves on these things across the board. And with regard to the many issues that the world is facing today, certainly terrorism continues to be one of the most important. But the question isn't just how we combat terrorism. The question is, how do we live with the people upon whom we have placed the brand of terrorist? And we have to approach that certainly from a legal perspective. Dr. Ellis is here to talk to us about what I would term the humanistic perspective, because the two are not really completely distinguishable from each other. One has to inform the other. From the legal perspective, the first thing we have to do, and this is the third thing that I tell my students all the time, we have got to define terms. How do we define foreign terrorist fighter? How do we define so many of the things that we're confronting today? One of the issues that I've always struggled with is that the United States government, among its various agencies and departments, has at least 13 different definitions of terrorism. If the United States itself cannot agree on what exactly terrorism is and what a terrorist is, how is the world to come together, especially the world community that is dealing with this issue? How is it ever to come together, agree and arrive at a single commonly accepted definition and understanding of terrorism, and then proceed from there? And ultimately, we have to ask, what are we going to do with these people? We're here to talk about a lot of things today: repatriation, retraining, if you will. Some people call it de-brainwashing of people who have become radicalized. But unless we are ready to simply incarcerate, detain these individuals for the rest of their lives without really giving serious consideration to their individual circumstances, to the facts and evidence that ever really existed against them, what are we to do with them? A number of years ago, I had the great honor of being asked down to Fort Bragg on 3 occasions to spend a week each time doing training and consulting with the Delta Force, America's elite Army Special Forces counterterror unit. And in saying that, I don't mean any disrespect to SEAL Team 6, which certainly enjoys the same title. And I had gotten to know the 2 senior intelligence officers for the Delta Force, and they were 2 of the most impressive individuals I had ever met, certainly 2 of the most knowledgeable individuals I had ever met. And a couple years later, one of them was a co-speaker at a SWAT conference here in the United States. And we had several hundred SWAT operators from around the country. And when he was to speak, I wanted to be front row center for his presentation, because not only did he have access to such incredible information, but I had come to respect him, his professionalism, and his judgment to such a great degree. And the first thing that he said in his presentation to all of these elite law enforcement officers here in the United States, and you have to stop and consider who this is coming from. This is coming from someone who had devoted his life to being a member of one of the most elite special operations counterterror units in the world, certainly in the United States. And he opened his presentation by telling these police officers, I don't care where you come down on the whole notion of America's geopolitical decisions and its decisions for military interventionism in places around the world since 9/11. He said, I don't care if you completely agree with everything the United States has done. But the simple reality that everyone has to accept is this: we are never going to kill our way to peace in this situation. Back then, I believe there were 1.77 billion Muslims in the world. And he said, we are not going to kill them all. We cannot possibly kill them all. And he said, again, no matter how patriotic you feel for US decisions abroad, the simple truth is that everything we have done has been the single greatest recruiting campaign for these terrorist organizations they could have ever asked for. So he said, we need to start thinking now about what the long-term solution to all of this is. And in that respect, what he said is, it's hard to argue with. I don't care if you come from the prosecution side of this, the defense side of this, the policy side of this. The simple reality is we cannot kill our way to peace. And everybody, every country involved in efforts against terrorism, every country dealing with foreign terrorist fighters, has really got to start giving more consideration to this. And some countries need to start giving at least some consideration to this. Because if we're not going to do that, what exactly are we going to do with them? The issues today we're going to be talking about certainly are justice. And the overarching aspect of justice, of course, is the application of the law. But just what is that law? We're going to talk about repatriation. We're going to talk about gender considerations, certainly, especially those with regard to women. And I'm happy to say that I am a member of a panel of some of the world's true experts on this. But again, looking at the history of this, no matter what nation everyone hails from, and we have representatives from a few different countries here, the US experience, or what I might call the US experiment with detainees in Guantanamo Bay, is going to continue to be a factor and an influence in what the entire world community does. And we've got to look at that experience. We have to examine the fact that the entire world has not come together to recognize a single definition of terrorist. The world has not come together and agreed on US conduct with regard to Guantanamo Bay. And we have had even the US Supreme Court in at least 3 different decisions now question, if not deny, the US the ability to continue to go forward with what was its original plan, its original model for dealing with detainees in Guantanamo Bay. At first denying them the right to attorneys, denying them habeas corpus, denying them the presentation and access of evidence, then finding that some of the initial commission or tribunal developed to at least give them some measure of testing of evidence against them, that they were unacceptable as well. Then we look at the repatriation of so many of those detainees from Guantanamo Bay, and countries are not in complete agreement as to who they're going to take back and what individuals they want back. Every country needs to be examining whether these individuals are going to be afforded an opportunity to challenge what might have been evidence presented against them, convictions in Guantanamo Bay. And as we look at the Iraq and Syria situation, we are yet again confronting that same situation. What is going to be the status of these individuals as they're being returned to their home nations? What evidence will have been developed? Will the home nations choose to try them? Will the home nations afford them the opportunity to challenge any adverse finding against them that had come from any court, any tribunal, any commission, whichever gets developed? So these are all issues that are of overarching importance today. And as we continue to address these issues, which is why, once again, I'm so proud and honored to be part of this. But once more, if we're not going to repatriate these individuals, if we're not going to develop a set of protocols and procedures for doing so, ultimately, what are we going to do with them? So thank you very much.